All right, welcome back to another episode of Scene Interpretation. I am Dr. Sophia Murphy. I'm a licensed mental health therapist here in Arizona. And if you've been listening to any episodes or if this is your first time joining, I am a movie obsessive. Goes back as far as I can remember. And there's nothing better for me to spend my time than hanging out with cool people, talking about movies that I love, and especially when it's a movie that somebody has seen for the first time. So today I am hanging out with the beautiful Christine. And we are going to get into a super, super classic, and I am so excited. We are going to be talking about Psycho, the original 1960, not that remake nonsense. We're going to pretend that doesn't exist. So if you want to introduce yourself, we'll kind of get into it.
Yeah, hi. I'm Christine. I'm a Spanish teacher, friends with Sophie, and I love watching mostly TV shows. I'm more of a TV series person,
Right.
more than movies, which is why I've never seen Psycho. But I love talking about them also. So
Yes.
ex-
And I'm glad you said that because I think it's really cool how we landed on this movie is because you were telling me how much you love the TV show Bates Motel. And I've never seen the show. I've only seen the movie. So I'm actually really excited as we're going through the conversation today to see how it affected your maybe interpretation or feeling towards the movie. And also, I just don't know anything that happens in the show. So I'm really kind of curious to get maybe some spoilers of like how it, I'm assuming, builds on to the movie.
yeah, definitely. Should I give away any spoilers? Should I be careful about doing that with
I
Bates
mean,
Motel?
I think at this point, we'll just say we're going to be spoiling anything. We're not going to super censor ourselves. Depending on how well you sell it, I might get really invested. And then you can let me know if you don't want to spoil like a certain thing, because maybe I'm going to want to watch the show.
For sure.
So I'm going to let you decide.
I want people to actually want to watch it and not be like, oh, now I know
You
everything.
Okay, that's fair. And now that you've seen the movie, maybe the movie also spoils the show a little bit. I'm not sure. You kind of have to you have all this extra knowledge, so you'll have to decide.
Definitely. Yeah. There's a lot of knowledge here about Norman Bates in general.
Yeah,
My brain.
I'm imagining it's so cool. We're gonna layer it all together. All right, so I think I want to jump right in and talk about the most famous scene, probably in most movies, and especially in this movie, the shower scene. So it's arguably one of the most famous scenes in cinematic history, and maybe both because of the show or just again like general cultural knowledge. Did knowing that it carries so much weight change how you experienced the movie this first time? Did you find yourself like really waiting for that scene, or were you just going with the flow?
I was trying to go with the flow, but it was really hard because I kept guessing who these people were and I was
Sure.
wrong. I didn't know it was going to come so early in the show.
Yes.
Like I was like, wait, she's showering. Oh, this is just her showering and it's a foreshadowing to what's going to happen like
Yeah.
at the end of the movie. No.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that too, because that was really groundbreaking for the time. So Janet Leigh was pretty famous already, and it was very much marketed as her movie. And so there's actually a lot of great newspaper clippings and different stories about how Hitchcock famously refused to let anyone into the theater after a certain amount of time because he wanted to maintain that tension that this was her story.
Mhm.
And so when she's killed very early on, people didn't know what to expect because they'd never seen anything like it. I've come to this movie to see Janet Leigh and she's dead. Where could this possibly go? And so I wonder what you think about it kind of now that you're in on that secret that's been part of this like movie culture for over 60 years.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was interesting. I kind of had an idea of where the movie was going to go after that just because of Bates Motel.
Sure.
But honestly, I thought it was a really funny scene.
Oh no. Tell me more about that.
I mean, I'm sure if I had like never seen it before, I don't know, maybe like I don't think old movies are that scary. I think it's funny, like
Sure.
the music. I've always known that.
Yeah.
Like I've
The
known
high pitched violence.
and that
Yeah.
someone gets killed in the shower, but
Yep.
watching it,
Yep.
I couldn't like the way they film, the way that their bodies move and they're not actually stabbing her
Sure.
and she just like falls out of the shower and I'm like, are you really hurt? So it was kind of a funny experience for me.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, totally valid. That's part of some movies not aging as well as others, right? And so I think what's neat too, though, is growing up and seeing this pretty young, they had to do so much because, again, like, you couldn't show those things in movies
Yeah.
back then. So there's a lot of Hitchcock's brilliance around how they were able to get away with it. And one of the biggest changes that he made to be able to get the movie made was to make it black and white,
Mm.
because you couldn't show the blood like that, and you couldn't have what was considered a high level of gore back in the late 50s when they were filming it to have it even be released in the 60s. So making the whole movie black and white was specifically for that scene to get the green light to even have it be made.
Wow, I had no clue. I thought they didn't even have, like, colors.
They did have color movies,
I was
yes,
like
back from about the 30s.
That's what I thought so, and I was like, "Why is this so?" And I don't mean to hate on Alfred Hitchcock,
No,
but
for
it's,
sure.
I'm like that with all old movies. When I told you The Birds too, it's
Oh, yeah.
excruciating for me. That was the original idea, like, he gets the credit for that,
Yeah.
but Bates Motel, as I'm watching this, I'm like, Bates Motel is so much better, like, the cinematography is better, everything, but, it was enjoyable and interesting and funny. And I
Yeah,
think because I watch so many gory, explicit shows now, and
sure.
we're allowed to do that
Yeah.
nowadays, that I'm very desensitized to, like, that
Yeah.
other stuff.
And that's a super valid point. I mean, at this point, everything we've seen since 1960 is gone through the roof. And probably even just in the last 15, 20 years since torture porn really took off as its own type of horror movie, separate from like ghosts and demons. Our threshold, I would imagine, for any of us who like those types of movies is pretty freaking high.
Mhm.
This is very tame in comparison, for
Yes.
sure. So yeah, I guess kind of talk to me about just like your general takeaway, how you felt when you were watching the movie.
I probably look at it differently, look at Norman Bates differently than other people. I'm not sure. It's
Sure.
hard to, like, understand what someone else might see him
Yeah,
as, like you,
absolutely.
who's never seen Bates Motel. Um, because I watch a lot of, like, these gory killer shows, I'm very
Sure.
interested to know, like, where that psychology comes from.
Sure.
Bates Motel, that's what the whole premise
Right. Because
is
it's a prequel, right?
it's technically a prequel, but it does take place in present day, but it has, like,
Oh,
a
interesting.
60s vibe to it, like, they like
Okay.
to watch old movies together,
Okay. And it's
and
him and mom,
and him
right?
and mom, so Norma and Norman, and
Okay.
you learn a lot about Norma,
Okay.
and his toxicity comes from Norma.
Yes.
So, you kind of see that in the movie, but I was like, you don't get the full development of
Yeah.
how he gets to be this way, so I could see how maybe someone is like, "Oh, this guy's crazy," you know?
Yes.
I mean, obviously, he's got some issues, but I feel really bad for Norman, like, I feel for him, I know all the things he's been through, so
Got it. It builds
watch
a lot of empathy for him.
it does.
Okay.
So, watching it, I was like, I feel like this is just a snippet of what the whole story is, which obviously they created the rest of that story
Sure.
apart from Alfred Hitchcock, so
Right. They got to really run with it however many years later the show came out.
but I feel like they did a great job at that, like, I
Yeah.
feel like Alfred Hitchcock would be happy with
I wish there was a way to find out, like, what he thinks about, like, carrying on this legacy story.
Yeah, because essentially Psycho is just, like, the end of Bates Motel.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because I guess there is a Psycho 2, to be honest. I've never actually seen it. And the same actor comes back to play Norman Bates. So I'm not sure how they expanded his story. I guess he gets out of prison or out of the asylum, wherever they're like holding him. But yeah, that's a really good point. Is the original movie, at least the way it's designed and captured, is really like we are imagining he's been doing this for a very long time. He's very tortured. I'll use that word, I would say, psychologically. And it catches up to him, and
Yeah,
he's institutionalized
yeah.
because he's just too dangerous.
And it's really, really sad because you do see how, like, his mom is so manipulative and where that
Yeah.
comes from, like, at a very young age, and she's been also in abusive relationships, and Norman has seen that,
Mm-hmm.
and he wants to protect women from men, so he'll hurt men, but then his mother also instills this shame
Yeah.
within him. "Oh, this woman is a trollop. How dare you feel something
Sure.
for someone like that?" Almost even forms a weird, incestual bond with him.
Right.
So he's obviously, as a brain is developing, confused about all
Yes.
of that, and why he takes on Norma's qualities and
Right.
becomes her because he is shaming himself as his mother always did.
Correct.
And
For
then
having any attraction,
yeah,
right?
and then he
Yeah.
goes after these women as Norma
Right.
because his brain can't even compute what's going on. So it's
And this is a good sell, and to me, it really does sound like it's building off of the little tiny bit of breadcrumbs we get at the end of the movie when the psychiatrist comes back and shares what he took from his clinical interview with Norman. And so I'm not gonna quote the lines perfectly, but basically he does talk about how, his dad died at a young age, so it was just him and mother. And to your exact point, I don't think they used the terms incest yet or even, like, emotional incest, which we have now in my field, but is implying that they became closer than was healthy and that he basically developed a split personality.
Mm.
And we didn't have that terminology back in the day either. And it is even still very, what's the word I want? Not contradictory. Um, oh my gosh.
juxtaposing.
No, where people think that it's like not true. Some people think it's true. I'm having a total brain fart.
It's controversial.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Even that's controversial today, right? Some people believe in DID, some people don't in the field. And so it was pretty groundbreaking again to have this idea that he developed the split personality of becoming his mother, and his mother was the one who was killing the women because he had all those conflicting feelings. So it makes me excited to make me watch the show because it does really sound like they build upon those little breadcrumbs we end on, which was he was quote unquote psycho because he had this split part of himself that he couldn't control, and that was the violent side. That was the side that was doing all the killing based on this less than ideal relationship with his mother as a small boy.
Yes, exactly. What was I gonna say?
I know, thoughts.
There's so many of them that I was thinking of. The monologue, though, is really funny. I had made a note about that because I'm thinking, like, do people know what's going on in Norman's brain? Like, I do as I'm
Right.
watching this. And then at the very end, this guy, doctor, comes in and gives a whole monologue
Yeah.
explaining basically everything I knew about Norman Bates. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting also to see how old movies do things in a much more, like, I don't want to say less artistic way because
Yeah.
that seems rude. But like I don't, the way that they portray, like, um, you know, Norman is Norma. They have Vera Farmiga, the actress for Norma, like
Oh, yeah.
actually acting, whereas like in Psycho, it's just some guy coming in and explaining the whole thing in like a 5-minute monologue.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's not my personal jam. I like the visuals, but
Sure.
I just thought it was interesting how they like wrapped it all up at the end. And
Yeah. And I think, again, what we're bumping into is that distinct difference between not really having anything to compare Psycho to when it was made and all the information both in that same universe and different stories that we have now, right? I mean, I think the idea was that the typical person who would go see this movie in the 60s is on the ride with Hitchcock for the entire movie, that you have Norman, this like soft-spoken, quiet young man who seems a little off. I mean, he's obviously crossing boundaries. He's watching, Marion through the wind or through the little hole in the wall. Like, it's a little creepy for sure, right? And you're convinced that his mother lives upstairs and that there's this bizarre dynamic between two distinct people until the shocking moment at the end where you see him dressed as his mother. Yeah. There was just nothing like that at the time.
that's true. And that's one thing I was gonna run back to is watching that part for me.
Yeah.
I was like, it's Norman.
Right.
I know it's Norman because you see that in the show and you see the
Sure.
progression of that. Like you even see him like before he fully embodies his mom, he's like trying on her dress and
Sure.
and another incestual part to it that I know like drove in Bates Motel was Norma would just be like changing and be like, why are you walking away? I'm just your mother. Like, or come give me a kiss on the lips. I'm just your mother. Like,
Oof, yeah, really leaning into that emotional incest.
yeah. So you can just see a lot of that coming about like through the whole show. But yeah, for me, I can imagine how shocking it was at the time and just for first time viewers. But for me, I knew like the whole time it was, it was him dressed up.
Right. So you had the most shocking reveal as, information before you even started the movie.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, this movie's been around forever. It's hard to not know, even just in pop culture.
Right.
The whole idea that Norman Bates dressed as his mother and killed these women is, again, just kind of like knowledge a lot of people know.
I actually didn't know that until I started watching Bates Motel. Like I knew nothing about
Okay,
Psycho,
there you go.
and I didn't even know Bates Motel was. For like maybe the first couple seasons, the first time I watched it, had no clue that it was related to Psycho. And I might have mentioned it to someone like, yeah, Bates, and maybe my mom, like, oh,
Yeah.
Norman Bates, like Psycho. I'm like the shower killing thing.
Yes, there you go.
So I made that connection. And there's actually at the very, the end of the series, because that's essentially when Norman becomes the creepiest. Like his
Right.
mom's gone. He has fully done that split personality. That's when he starts cutting a hole in the wall and everything
Mhm.
toward the end of the series. And at the end of the series, Rihanna is actually Marion Crane.
Oh,
So there is an
wow.
episode with Marion Crane in
Ending the
Bates
whole
Motel.
show, like,
Mhm.
handing it off to the movie.
Exactly.
I mean, it does sound like they did an excellent job for sure.
Yeah, and there's all these, like, side stories in it too, so, it just shows you too how, like, all, like, these, like, Norma and Norman attract all these, like, bizarre guests and,
Sure.
like, very sketchy people. Like, every time they think everything's okay, there's, like, a new person selling drugs or killing people, and then they get involved and Norman goes crazy, so
So fascinating. Well, and I do want to say too, I won't spend too much time on this, that I saw some really interesting criticism of this movie maybe like 5, 10 years ago, that people thought it was a really negative connotation of a trans person and that it was really damaging to the trans community because it depicted Norman Bates as a murderer. And I haven't obviously spoke to anybody about this. This was just like a thing that I saw on Netflix or whatever. And I think that's very interesting because that's not my read on it at all. I really take it as he is really mentally disturbed and traumatized, right? And sees himself as his mother, not just a man who believes he is a woman, right? Or who knows his true identity is a woman, that he is completely warped from the young abuse or the abuse he experienced as a young man, that he can no longer separate him and his mother as two distinct people. He's absorbed her basically into himself and really is, I think, maybe an early example of dissociative identity disorder in a movie, not a really, really poor representation of a trans person. So I'm just curious what you think about that.
yeah, no, that's actually I'm glad you brought that up because even in the movie, and it again shows the date of the movie where the
Yeah,
way that they say he's a transvestite. We don't say transvestite anymore
right,
because that's outdated. And I was like, that's interesting because I wasn't sure what the term would be, split personality or
right,
what have you. But again, knowing so much of Norman Bates, he doesn't want to be a woman.
right,
If anything, it's his brain protecting him because you know, to accept the fact that I went and killed someone and I'm
correct,
doing these things, that's too much for your brain to absorb. And
right,
I know just through experiences and reading and stuff that your brain does do that to some
yep,
level with trauma in general. So it makes total sense. And I can understand how that could be confusing for some people. But I just think that it shows that we need to have more knowledge on transgender people, these different personality split disorders, whatever it may be,
yeah,
because
absolutely,
it's not just surface level. Oh, he's dressing like a woman, so he wants to be a woman. No,
right. And I think that maybe, if anything, to give the movie a little more grace, I can't remember who actually says the statement about being a transvestite, but
it
it
was the doctor who gave the monologue at the end.
got it. Yeah. So even the monologue content and the title are contradictory. You know what I mean? So, like, even if you look back at old psychology, we didn't consider transvestism split personalities. So, like, even there, I think there's a little bit of confusion and maybe just that's a writing hole.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
I
I
think
think
it
it's
was actually
fascinating.
someone who asked the doctor. So he's a transvestite.
Okay, that's what
And
I
then it
thought too.
yeah,
It
and then it
wasn't
was
the
the
doctor
doctor.
himself.
It was
Okay.
yeah, and then the
Yeah.
doctor actually clarified, no. So they
Okay.
do say like, no, this isn't about that. They don't touch a lot on what
Right.
they think transvestitism is at the
Yes.
time,
Yeah.
but they do say, no, it's
Okay, that's
this.
what I thought too. That's why I was confusing myself, was I thought the doctor actually clarifies and gives more of, again, the psychology of his trauma, even though,
Mhm.
again, we're not using all those terms back then. But I'm pretty sure he uses the words of like he splits.
Yeah,
And
so
he does introduce that language, and it's someone else kind of pigeonholing Norman in the wrong category. Because I think the one true part, especially in the 60s and even up till now, is people saw being transgender as a mental illness. And so that's something that we're unfortunately still battling. But I just wanted to touch on the fact that culturally, I'm not reinforcing a movie that I think portrays trans people as dangerous. I don't think he's portrayed as a trans person at all.
and I know just to kind of bring in Ed Gein for a second here.
Right.
I know we talked about how maybe Psycho wasn't inspired by Ed Gein, But, one thing he did do, at least from the show that I watched about Ed Gein, is
Right.
dress up like, he wore women's skin.
Right.
Um,
It was the extreme.
and in that show, again, it was a dramatization of it, but he talks to someone about, I think he talks to a trans woman over a radio or something like this.
Yes.
And he's questioning because he's confused about himself. And this trans woman is like asking him all these questions. Do you feel like you're a woman? I don't know. They get really deep into it. And he comes to the terms with he's not trans. Ed Gein, and that's where I think the similarity comes with
Right.
Norman. Is
Yeah.
like Ed Gein just wanted to feel like he was in a woman's skin, which is like a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, so there's just so much that goes into it, and sexual identity or just split personality that can kind of go over one another
Yeah, and
in
again,
this
I think
case.
there's so many branches of every tree that even with the Ed Gein discussion, and I've studied him a little, but my memory too is he had a different sort of wrapping up of dressing in women's clothing or sometimes taking on some of those attributes was a sexual thing for him, which was still a trauma response in terms of like how his story unfolded in his life. And not every sexual kink is a trauma response, right? So there's just like so many layers to that. But I thought it was worth noting that there has been this criticism of the movie, which fair, and at least in my opinion, that's not how I absorb it. And I definitely don't see it as a representation of trans people being dangerous. I think it's really a very ahead of its time representation of childhood trauma,
Yeah.
splitting somebody's psyche to where, like you said, if you do these terrible acts, you have to kind of create this distance between you as you know you and the person who's actually committing the crimes. And like you said, you have so much more knowledge about Norman's upbringing from the show that seems to track. Like this was his unfortunate ending or pathway from all the things that he endured was to try to make sense of himself as his mother in some instances.
Yeah. And honestly, when I was taking notes on the movie yesterday, I was like, the last time I started watching Bates Motel, because also I've seen that show several times.
I
It's
know
not
you
just
mentioned
once.
that you rewatched it. You're a big stan.
So I actually started taking notes and like dissecting the whole show when
That's
I
awesome.
started. So I brought up my notes and I'm looking at all this and I'm like, yeah, Norman starts off not normal, but like
He's just a kid,
he
right?
just tries to be social, he tries to be normal, and
Yeah.
Norma's just always like, oh, and she acts like a child, and it's the manipulation. She's like, yeah, you just don't want to be here helping me.
Mm,
You want to be with
the
your girlfriend.
gaslighting, yeah.
And then he's like, no, mother, I'll be here with you. And then she wants him to go be normal later in the show. Well, you've isolated him and made
Right.
him attached to you. And, he gets involved in taxidermy, which was honestly started as a harmless thing.
Mm,
And it's just
mhm.
interesting how that kind of compounds everything
Right.
and just snowballs, because it was like his friend's dad who was like, hey, I do taxidermy. Like, you want to do it too? And he's like, that sounds cool. It became something really creepy that started off
Yeah.
kind of
Just
innocent.
like a normal, like, hobby in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big taxidermy person,
No,
but,
me neither,
it's
but
like,
I'm sure there's lots of people who do taxidermy who are not serial
yeah,
killers.
that's
That's
not
probably the main takeaway.
probably exactly.
I love it. So kind of in the same vein, Norman Bates is introduced to us, if we just think about the movie, as very soft-spoken, gentle, deeply sympathetic, right? Until we learn, the normal viewer who doesn't have this background, that he isn't, right? So what do you think about the fact that Hitchcock made us like him before we realized we needed to actually be afraid of him?
Well, I think that's who Norman Bates
Yeah,
is he is a gentle person, and, again, I think it's the trauma that
right,
makes him the other way, and you kind of see that, when Marianne they're in the back room together,
right.
which, side note, I would not be in the back room with Norman. Like, as much as I feel bad for him from afar, I no,
Yeah,
he's saying some weird stuff. She's they're just back there eating sandwiches, and he's talking about his mother, and she starts to, well, maybe you should put her in a mental institution.
yeah,
He just changes, like, how dare you?
right.
You start to see that within him.
He gets very
He
protective.
gets very protective. So,
Mhm.
and obviously, like, as much as I'll empathize with where someone's trauma comes from, I never condone all that craziness.
Right, you can't be
Um,
violent and stabbing people to death regardless of what you went through. We have to have some sort of line.
so yeah, it's a lot of like those two things can exist at once. I
Yep.
feel for him, but also he shouldn't be like running around free.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just like, I feel like a lot of people can be like that sometimes too, the quieter ones, you just have to watch out for those red flags because that was a red flag. And
Right.
Marion still like went to her room and I don't know, I would leave. I'd be piecing out of there. I'd sleep in my car somewhere.
Well, and I think that's another thing that oftentimes doesn't age well in movies is the decision making of the main characters, right? And I think it is tough because again, we've had so many experiences probably in our personal life and, us both being socialized as women, like there are things you learn to protect yourselves and how to like read a room. And I don't know that in 1960 women were being taught those things, right? Like you pull off in a rainstorm to this abandoned motel and then not only get a room, but end up having dinner with this man alone in this space. Like there's just so many things that in 2026 I would think most of us would do very differently. Like I'd either keep driving or I'd turn around or again, if I got that gut feeling that this isn't safe, I'd probably leave. Um, but I've been on a big horror kick myself too, and it's interesting to watch some of these older movies and think like, I wonder why they didn't just leave. And that's like a big, I think, critique of most horror movies from forever is that they've relied so heavily on characters making poor decisions to move the story forward.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just a movie thing. I think that's actually based on some real life because I've seen like shows where people have
Mhm.
escaped killers, real stories.
Oh, that's fair.
I don't know
Yeah.
why I air quoted that. Like they did escape killers.
It really
It
happened.
really
It's
happened.
not hypothetical.
And it's terrifying. But it's interesting because a lot of these stories took place in like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And people were like, yeah, I was walking on the side of the road and someone told me to get in their car. And that was normal at the time.
Good point. And maybe to that exact point, you don't expect this man to be dangerous because either you're just not aware of that type of stuff in the world based on her little like bubble that she lived in, or it just wasn't talked about. I think that's also kind of critiquing and giving it a little bit of grace at the same time. Like, again, we have to try to keep putting our brains back into that day
Mhm.
of what would make her not want to do this thing that seems really benign.
Well, because we don't, girls have to be nice.
That's true.
We have to be nice. We have to follow along. But I think it's actually interesting too. I noted in the movie that in the beginning, there's a cop that stops Marion for
Yes.
sleeping on the side of the road.
Right.
And he says, you should go to a motel. And he even says, for your safety.
Great point. That's actually super insightful that you caught that and put that together because you could argue then that she is trying to do the right thing and take the feedback she was just given. And I mean, again, I think especially in the 60s, we were looking at police as very like helpful and very much like, the true north. If a cop tells you to do this, cops would never do anything wrong. So like this must be the thing I need to do. That's
Yeah.
a great point.
And I was even, when I was thinking about it personally, what I was thinking too is like a lot of people will tell me, like, oh, be careful when you're, I've lived in a lot of like countries and dangerous areas too.
Sure.
And people will tell me to be very careful in these spaces. But I think that obviously, like, if there's more crime in an area, it is more dangerous. But I think that anything can happen anywhere.
That's also true.
And I kind of feel like that was what I got out of that too is like, you could go somewhere where you think it's safe and it's not.
Yes, and I do think that's a big part of Hitchcock's horror in general was taking the mundane and making it really dangerous, right? So like I know you don't like the birds and that's fair. I again saw it at a very young age and I think just the idea of like that's not typically a creature we're afraid of, right? Like we're afraid of sharks or snakes or spiders, movies that were all made after the birds. And just the idea that like a normal small sleepy town, normal day, all of a sudden the birds just start acting different and that becomes the threat and they become incredibly violent
Yeah.
and basically destroy this entire town was again for the time just different. And I think he excelled at that sort of under like current of distress
Mm-hmm.
of like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't abnormal to stop and just stay in a motel for one night and then get back on the road. And
Right.
she's pretty close to where she's headed in California because I remember later in the movie, the boyfriend and, the is it her sister?
It's her sister, yeah.
Yeah, like they can pop over to the motel and check it out for themselves.
Yeah.
Like it's not that far.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I think you're right. There's probably this kind of built-in sense of security of just like this is a thing people do all the time. Like how could this be the dangerous thing?
Yeah. No, and I can totally respect that because, like, yeah, you're showering, and I know you said you were scared to take a shower with that, which is
Still
understandable.
to this day.
It's understandable. And I never watched those movies as a young kid. So
Yeah.
I would, I was a little freaked out at one scene in The Birds because, like, the way they film it can be scary,
Which is the point.
I get it,
That's
like
his masterpiece,
yeah,
yeah, or
but
his masterful skills.
as, like, someone who's an adult and I watch this and I've seen truly, for me, scary movies, I'm
Sure.
like, the music and, like, Norman was, like, cleaning up the bathtub with, like, a mop, and I'm like,
Yeah. It just didn't land at this
it
age.
didn't land, but
Yeah.
I still enjoy, watching that.
Yeah. Well, and I remember too, again, dating myself, Universal Studios used to have like a Hitchcock attraction. And so you would go and they would have all these great props, and there was like 2 or 3 different rooms, and they would teach you how he did some of the best effects again for the time. And so one of the parts of the attraction was they would recreate the shower scene and show you how they used all the different cameras, how they turned it into black and white, and how they were able to, make the stabbing motions without ever showing it penetrate the skin. Cause again, you couldn't do that in the 60s. And so for me, like even just hearing the strings, like that music is incredibly dreadful. Like it very quickly brings back those memories. Even when she's like driving in the car and it's raining, you could just feel it building.
Yeah.
And it just I think it does matter what time and place you're introduced to that stuff, because, yeah, no, and I can't really, like, be in the bathroom, in the shower with my eyes closed because I just can hear the the string music in my brain. It's like when we did the Jaws episode, like, if I get in the ocean, I immediately hear the Jaws piano, and
Yeah.
I'm just convinced that there's a shark under the surface that's gonna kill me. This is the day.
You'd be watching it, like, all scared, I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Ah, ha, ha." I'm like, again, I didn't expect her to come out and do that in that moment. I thought it
Sure.
was just like an, "Oh, this is one shower moment, there'll be another one,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Oh, damn, it's already happening," and I'm like, "Ah, ah," and I'm like,
Fair.
"Sophie's gonna ask me about this," and I'm gonna
I
say I
have a
laughed through
very
it.
different response, and I wish I knew. I don't have, like, specific data on what the most, like, violent movie was before this movie,
Mhm.
but I have a vague sense, though, that this was, again, like, people were fainting, like, you just never seen a person get murdered on screen to that degree.
Yeah.
Um, there was just nothing to compare it to, and even her, like I know it feels comical to you, but when she falls and her eyes are open and the
Mhm.
music is just playing and, like, the blood and the water's going down the bathtub, I think people just didn't know what to do with that. It
It
was groundbreaking.
it makes me feel a little psycho myself, like, is nothing gets to me? Like, is that
That's
okay?
fair.
Are we all okay as a
That's
society?
fair.
Like, it really is, like, I mean, if I were to see this in real life, I hope that I would respond differently and, have
Sure.
different emotions, but it is interesting how, you know, people are, in general, I think, more desensitized to
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Um,
I think we've seen gorier things on the news. Like, you make a really good point. Like, we've seen crime photos on the news, like, on documentaries. That stuff is just so much more accessible now, not in black and white, and it's real. So
mhm,
I do think your point is 100% valid of, like, what we see as terrifying and as really disturbing is completely relative,
mhm,
and it
definitely.
just has to be. So, let's see. So kind of in the same vein, the Bates Motel is kind of just like this big figure in the movie, sits just off the highway. It's bypassed, forgotten, slowly dying. I'm wondering if it brought up anything for you just about like how the world constantly like revolves and moves on and how there might always be these things happening around us that we're not aware of.
Like, the people, like, kind of in the town around them, or
Just in general, like, I mean, again, I'm sure I'm influenced by seeing this so young, but like people drive by that hotel or
mhm.
motel in the big house, presumably for years, and no one had any idea what was happening behind it. The world just kind of keeps spinning.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder what you think about that idea of like the world just keeps moving, it just keeps evolving, and like we don't always know what's happening behind these closed doors, just in terms of like that horror trope.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I kind of think about that with, like, anything. I just think about, like, how many people are, like, kissing right now, you know? Like, I don't
Sure.
know, like, there's people in their homes right now doing whatever. I have no clue what's going on.
Right.
We don't know about things that are happening until it potentially comes on the news.
True.
And it also makes me just feel like this can happen to anyone at any
Yeah.
given time, which is a scary thought. And I don't think you should go around paranoid all the time. But
Sure.
I am someone who is very alert and, like, I'm protective of myself. I live
Mhm.
alone. I've traveled alone a lot, so
Yep.
I am very aware. I don't want to say paranoid because I'm not, like, scared going places, but I
Yeah.
am aware, like, I don't know what's going on here.
Sure.
I don't know what's going on anywhere, and I just have to protect myself
Yes.
first. Uh,
Yeah, and there's a big difference between being, like, present, perceptive, and hypervigilant. Like you
Exactly.
are 100% on point. Like I do think that being too unaware is just as dangerous as being hyper aware,
Mhm.
right? We have to kind of find a way to navigate through without rose colored glasses per se, but also not assuming around every corner someone's trying to hurt us. Like
Mhm.
it's a delicate balance.
It really is, yeah,
And
yeah.
I think to your other point, like for some people, these kinds of movies would elicit the more hypervigilance where it just makes them more afraid of the world. And then for some of us, we just get more desensitized. Because people say that to me all the time. Like, I don't know how you watch horror movies. Like, I'd never sleep. I'd never be able to
Mhm.
like do anything. And
Yeah.
it's like, I hear that. And I think for me, you have to create some sort of distinction between like fiction and cinema and like your real world day to day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I learned stuff from
Mm-hmm.
this, like, I watch a lot of shows or documentaries where people get kidnapped.
Sure.
You learn what to do. I mean, hopefully, that would never happen to me or to
Right.
any of us, obviously, but again, anything could happen to us. We're walking along thinking it's a normal day. That's how everyone felt when whoever has gotten kidnapped, hurt,
Right.
they've
And
probably
survived
just
in these documentaries.
and
Yeah.
they've just been, like, walking about their normal day and something may happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an interesting both and, I think.
yeah.
And, like, for people who like to consume the scary stuff, I think other people are like, "Why would you even wanna put that in your brain?" But
So
I do think there's a little educational piece of, like, what I would wanna do differently if I had a choice.
yeah, and I also it makes me always think about because someone had mentioned to me how our nervous systems just are all different and function
Yes.
differently. So, this person who had talked to me about it was not into the shows that I watch,
Mhm.
but for me, it's like calming. Like when I Dexter is another one that I've watched many
Yeah.
times.
Classic.
I would fall asleep to the song. The song is literally called Blood, and it's like the ending.
Of the
It's like
show?
of the show, and,
Yeah.
like, there's always, like, the blood on the screen, I would, like, fall asleep to that. It's calming to me,
Sure.
and I told my friend that, and she's like, "You know, it's interesting because 'cause I'm sure your nervous system just, like, is different
Yep.
in that
And it
sense."
reacts differently.
And I think, like, just with my childhood and some of my past, I've had a lot of explosive, violent,
Mm.
relationships and family dynamics, and maybe that somehow seems not normal, but just somehow familiar, or even for me, I think I've thought about it, like, validating.
Sure.
Oh, other people have gone through crazy stuff,
Yeah.
or people have gone through even more crazy stuff,
Yep.
and they're okay. So it kind of helps me like escape my own craziness,
Yeah.
and trauma and focus on someone else's trauma.
Yep.
So,
Well, and I've been on this journey really since COVID. And so for me, I told people that nothing was worse than reality and almost to this day since 2020. So watching like a really insane or like really over the top horror movie, things that I used to not be able to tolerate is less activating to me than watching the news. And so like it's just become an interesting dynamic of like it feels very controlled, it's fake. Even though I have a physiological response, I get scared very easily. Like I fall for every jump scare. I'm like the perfect person that these movies were made for. It doesn't linger with me. It doesn't give me nightmares like the news does.
yeah.
Like it's just real. Like to me, reality is much more horrifying
Yeah.
than any of the things we're discussing right now. The
Definitely.
documentaries are harder because they're real.
Yeah.
They kind of toe that line of like this is a real person that did this thing and this person really went through this thing. But any of the like slasher movies don't bother me like they did pre-COVID. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. So my nervous system must have shifted too of like the distress of reality versus
That's interesting that because it like because I've always been kind of like this,
yeah,
but like that yours shifted, which is
yeah,
totally valid. Yeah, if I think about some stuff on the news and like I just my mind spirals and
yeah.
it's not productive. But ghost movies are what really get me. I can't do
Interesting.
ghosts. I can't. That's where I'll be like up all night, like there's something under my bed.
Oof.
I
There's some
feel
great ones of those.
I know I've tried some, but I can't
That's
do
the
those.
thing. That's your line.
That's my line
That's
because
fair.
you
We all have to have one.
you can't control the ghost, like, at least you can kill a person. You can defend yourself against a human. A ghost, you just okay, what are you gonna you could appear anywhere, you could suck
I
my
mean, I guess
soul.
you just move and hope that it doesn't follow
But
you.
they never move. They never move. "Oh, I bought this house, I
Except for
refuse."
Insidious, which is great.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the one movie where they actually do move, but it doesn't solve the problem. It's got a great twist.
That's what I'm saying, I can't do that. Like, you move and you're still cursed? No.
That's fair. Okay, let's see. A couple more from the movie specifically. Mm-mm-mm. So Marion steals the money, not really from greed. It's more out of desperation because of where she is in her life and this other life that she's longing for. And so you can either answer for yourself if you want to share, just kind of in generally, have you ever made a decision you knew was wrong, but it was better than staying in your current situation? Slash, what do you think about people who do that?
Yeah. Well, I have a few things to say about that. The first thing is just interesting because when I first started watching this and
Hmm.
they didn't say her name, I thought she was Norma.
Oh, interesting. Got
So
it.
I'm like,
So you're seeing her very differently.
also because in Bates Motel, Norman's dad's name is Sam.
Oh, and that's her boyfriend.
So
Interesting.
I was thinking, oh, this is the beginning of Norma and Sam and blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, oh no, this is like some girl who's going to go to the motel.
Right.
It took me forever to figure that out until she literally got to Bates Motel. And then I'm like, oh,
She's the main character.
she's the
Well, you
main,
think she's the main character.
yeah,
Yeah.
essentially. But then, I'm kind of putting together, this is not Norma, this is some other person, and
Yep.
he's with this guy. I think going back to the fact that it's an older movie, it's hard in those situations sometimes, as like a woman and,
Yeah.
being able to have freedom and get out, like, I feel like she kind of felt like she had to be with this man to have what she wanted, to have that independence. And
Yes.
like, if it were me, maybe, I mean, maybe not before myself, but nowadays myself, I would go take that money and go somewhere myself.
Right.
I
Yeah.
can do that. She couldn't do that. So I was surprised by that. I didn't think she was going to take the money.
Yeah.
And it just also makes me kind of cringe because it's like, oh, for this guy, like he's married too, right? So like,
Well, and I think you make a really great point too. If we look at that time and space of, I don't know in 1960, I'm pretty sure the answer is no, but like she couldn't have her own bank account. She couldn't do anything until she was married. And even then it would have to be through her husband. So the whole like kind of corner that she's in is not really self-imposed, right? It's very cultural to that time and space for a woman. And unfortunately, it becomes her demise, right?
mhm,
Like this decision leads to this snowball effect of scenarios with selling the car and then encountering the police officer and kind of like pushes her into this situation where one choice, has a permanent alteration of her life.
mhm. Yeah, demise of her life.
Really, literally the end.
But I think it's interesting because she was planning on going back and, like, making things
Right.
right before Norman killed her. But, I mean, I've read books, I've seen films where, yeah, women are put in these situations
Yep.
because of society, because of the patriarchy, because of just how things were,
Yep.
and I would do the same thing, girl. Like, there's like, go
Fucking
off.
shirt.
Like, and then that guy who came in with the money anyway was a piece of shit. Like,
Right.
I'm like, just take his money. Who cares? Like, you can't even have your own bank account. Like, screw them.
Yeah, and I don't think we have any empathy for that guy. Again, trying to put my brain in this like 1960s, very black and white. Again, to your point too, of what a woman's supposed to be like in her kindness and her niceness. I think it was probably a little bit shocking that she would break the law, and steal as this like dainty, demure
Mhm.
female. And I don't know if part of the writing was to punish her for that decision. I've never really looked at it through that vein. I think you could take a feminist lens and look at it as like the decision to kill her in that order, like as the outcome of her choices, does have an undertone of, she shouldn't have done that in the first place. But I think it's a little more complicated than that, which is also what I really like about the story. It's a little bit of, I think, our earlier conversation, just wrong place, wrong time. That's
Right.
part of the fear.
Yeah, that, but also then again, like me knowing Bates Motel, bringing that into it. Again, I think Norma instills in Norman
Mm,
when there's this problematic girl. It's not all women because he does date his friend at one point who's like super sweet, like Norma loves her. She never says anything bad about Emma.
interesting.
But if there's one little thing, like some girl is, I don't know, just a little too confident for Norma's
Mm,
liking, or does something like steals money. Like, I mean, you're not a terrible person, but like you're obviously doing something you
wrong.
shouldn't do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting because my thought is kind of similar and like adjacent to that of, I don't know, like maybe in the movie. that was the undertone, is like she's being punished for that. But that is what Norma instills in Norman. And that's kind of what I was like, wow, this girl is doing something that Norma would not approve of. So I was like, she's going to be a victim, because that's a lot of the women that would roll up to this motel. Like, I'm in issues. I've been doing drugs, or, blah,
I'm
blah,
just
blah.
going against the grain, right? Even being alone in this hotel at night,
Right.
like,
Anything that
she
like,
kind of exudes, to your word, that confidence where
mhm,
she's not, again, very demure, like, timid woman. She's kind of self-assured, and she's also having an affair. We know that
mhm.
information.
There's
So
that too.
I
Yeah.
think you make a really good point too, though, like, even though maybe they didn't have all those complete pieces, there is this sort of scale that maybe Norma is using
Yeah.
inside Norman's brain
Yeah.
of picking and choosing which women are deserving
Right.
of her wrath.
And maybe they just took that and ran with it for
Yeah,
the show,
that's a
but
great point.
it all connects in my brain, like, it makes sense that when I saw her steal the money, I was like, "Okay, so if she's gonna end up in Bates Motel, this is the perfect scenario, because
Yeah,
she's the perfect person for Norman to, like, get all hot and bothered about,
sure.
with his mom's thoughts in his head too."
Right.
Um
That's so neat to see how it kinda does tie together with the ongoing
I
story.
don't know how he attracts all these girls. Like, he's just like, I always think that, he's just walking along. He doesn't say much. And then there's girls just
Mhm.
coming up and sitting on his lap. And
In the show?
yeah,
Yeah.
like in the very beginning, this girl just comes up and sits on his lap. Here's my number. And it's just interesting how, like, he just
That is
attracts
fascinating.
all these women who are like that. And then Norma's like, who's this girl? And it's kind of weird. You're like, why are you jealous?
Well, I mean, I think that's the deeper point of their relationship being the problem more so than anything,
hmm
is it's just too disturbing for a young child to understand their parents' behavior that feels very, like, possessive and romantic and, yeah, crosses all the boundaries.
Not to give us too much of a spoiler too, but I just thought of this because there's so many elements to Bates Motel. I think there's
Right.
so many seasons. Um, Norma has, and she tells Norman this out of nowhere. Like, of course, it's typical narcissistic behavior. Like right before he
Sure.
goes to a school dance, my brother raped me.
Oh, wow.
So like, of course, again, she's dropping that on him. Like, and he's like, "What the hell?" Like
Right.
before he
What am
goes
I
to the
supposed to do with this information?
he's like, has his suit on and everything, and he's just like, "Mother." But I just think it's interesting that they, took that and
Yeah.
placed it in Bates Motel to kind of almost make this
Mhm.
like Norma didn't even grow up with a normal sense of,
Sure.
like,
She's traumatized too.
so she kind of probably doesn't know how to be a appropriate mother almost, like, she had
Yeah.
sex with her brother, so
Oof. Fair point. And again, like, I like hearing how they took this little bit of breadcrumbs we got about this family history of trauma and took it up the tree, because that is often how it really happens in real life, right? Like, there's some sort of dynamic that gets passed down, that gets passed down, gets passed down, does not always, of course, end in DID and homicide. um, that, yeah, I mean, like, our psyches are very delicate, and it's not hard to fracture them when you've had what's deemed to be a safe relationship become very unsafe. So it's so fascinating. Now I definitely want to watch the show. You've sold me.
you definitely should, yeah. And I know, like, I'm very comfortable sharing, like, a lot of my stuff. I've had my own, like, psychotic breaks where people have driven me to this point.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I feel so much more healed in these past few years. But, like,
Yeah.
looking back at my past, I have had moments where I've just gone so crazy. I don't even know who I am. Like,
Sure.
I have forgotten these moments. Like, there's things that I still can't remember.
Yep.
Um, and so maybe part of me does empathize to a certain extent with Norman because of that. Like,
Yeah.
I know, and I think that's actually a note that I've written down is I know what it's like to have someone drive you to a
Sure.
psychotic break, and it's really upsetting, and it's really hard to see, someone not even be able to come back from that like Norman. Where like I'm like privileged enough to not have gone that crazy. It's just been, these circumstances that
Yeah.
have marked me. But it's really hard because then you don't recognize yourself,
Sure.
and like you have done those actions, but it's,
You lose
because
parts of your identity
yeah,
when you're that distressed.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. And again, like, trauma changes us biologically, right? Physiologically, all of these parts of us are trying to create some sort of homeostasis, but sometimes what becomes homeostasis is really dangerous. And it doesn't, again, always look like this man murdering people in hotels, that, yeah, saying things you can't take back, actions you can't take back, and having to really come to terms with that when you weren't at your best. I appreciate your vulnerability, because I know you're not the only person who feels that way. this is an experience that a lot of people have of like, I lost who I was because of the thing I was going through.
Mm.
100%. So you actually kind of led into my next question beautifully, which was Norman is simultaneously both the victim of his mother and the perpetrator of her horrific violence. How do you hold both of those things at once? And does our understanding of someone's trauma change how we assign responsibility for their actions?
I love this question. I love it. I love it because also I just rewatched Dexter for the fifth time. And it's a similar thing with him
Yeah,
where, you know, you learn a lot about his, where his trauma comes from, but he's
right.
a serial killer because of it. He kills other serial killers, but he's a serial
Still,
killer.
yeah.
Uh,
Complicated hero of the story.
so I've actually just recently finishing that and then now watching this, like, holding those things, two things together
Yep.
has actually been something I've been reflecting on a lot.
Yeah,
And I reflect on it with like people in my life in like the less extreme situations where
sure.
people are unhealed. Um, and I'll feel really bad, you know, I don't want to say bad for them, but I understand them. I
Yeah,
can
you can have
relate.
empathy.
I have empathy. I can relate even to where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But I see that and I see how I was leading down a certain path um to more toxicity and
Mhm.
just the same patterns of behaviors that weren't getting me anywhere, and it was probably harming other people too.
Sure.
And so I had a switch and I had to wake up and look at that and grow.
Mhm.
Um, and I just kind of, as much as I empathize with people who do have this trauma, and again, the one that Norman Bates has is extreme,
Sure.
but in any kind of case, you have to have boundaries for yourself and
Right.
for, you know, protection for other people if it is an extreme case. But even with people who are just projecting onto their friends all the time, things like
Yep.
that, you have to have accountability. And I'm sorry, but I personally just can't have that in my life
Fair.
because I feel for you and I want to help and support people.
Yep.
But if they're beyond that or they're unwilling, then I have to personally step back. And in those extreme cases, yeah, they have to be tapered off from society. They can't be around, they can't be doing these things.
And I think you said it beautifully is having empathy for somebody does not condone any and all behavior that person can do or has done. We have to have lines both to protect ourselves and to protect, again, a broader society if we're talking about these more extreme examples. And I think it's something that we could all benefit from is learning to hold these seemingly contradictory things as true at the same time, right?
I think you have to do that with a lot of things too, and
Yes,
not
I
just
agree.
like I'm personally I've been running my own business for a while. I've stopped doing that now. I'm
Mm,
tapering off from it. I'm going to be a school teacher again.
yeah,
There's there's 2 feelings. I'm very excited about this new job,
yeah.
and I'm very sad to
Let
leave
your little
behind.
baby go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, it was my child. I grew it for 5 years and, you
Yeah.
know, that's the thing is we have to be able to hold those 2 feelings, and I think that's a language that we've started to develop more nowadays too, is
Agreed.
2 things can exist at once because a lot of the times I'll just allow the other one to take
Yeah,
over or maybe this one, and it is hard, and I think it takes practice.
absolutely.
I think it
It's a
takes a
big perspective shift.
yeah, definitely, but it's
100%.
I think once you can start to at least embody that really, then you handle things more with grace, you see things more clearly, you have healthier boundaries, because for a while, like, even again in the less extreme situations, I would try and help people, and then I would just give them too much access to me to
Oh,
hurt
yes.
me,
So fair.
and you could tell them, like, "Oh, they're not even trying to,
Yeah.
work on themselves or
Yep.
look at look inward," and I'm like, "I'm just hurting myself, I need to step back from this."
Absolutely. And I think on sort of the disappointing side of this, using my own language, is I do think some people have let their own narratives around their trauma define them.
Mm.
And even if they think they're taking steps to grow, they tend to fall back on the like, this is because of what's happened. And so it's like you can sort of maybe again have empathy for that struggle and not need to be in that sphere anymore because they are just not capable of being the type of person you need in your space
Yeah.
on the less extremes. Yeah.
Yeah, then yeah, all my
Not
friends
getting
are
into physical
murderers.
violence. Yeah, exactly. We're not crossing major boundaries like that. All right. So as we're wrapping up, anything from your notes that you wanted to share that we didn't get into?
I can take a glance. I
Okay.
did definitely want to talk about the ending too, because I will say I had like a different reaction to the ending, like because I've been like, this is such a funny movie, and
Sure.
like this, like even just the transitions, like the fade out to another scene,
Sure.
which total respect. Like I have even taken like a photography class, used
Yep.
analog cameras. I know how hard it was back at the time. Like
Oh, yeah,
we've
everything
just
was very
evolved,
different.
but I can't help but laugh. But I will say at the end, I can see how that was very creepy.
Yeah.
Like turning the skeleton around, and then they had the like flash to the skeleton and then to
Yep.
Norman, and he's like
Yep.
this with I'm like, I could see how that was like he was moving in weird ways like a contortionist, and I'm like, what is going on here?
Yes.
So
It's just very unnerving.
it is, and I definitely was like, okay, I can see how this is creepy.
Yep. Especially for the time, which I think is the part we're coming back to.
Yeah. Also, I didn't realize that it took place in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes. Yes. I love that little like nugget of information.
I feel like I probably said most of everything.
Okay. I appreciate all your insights, and now I'm really sold on this TV show. I just have to find the time.
Yeah. No, I think I like once we get rolling, I'm very good at remembering everything I wrote.
Yeah. Well, and you kind of led into this that I always like to ask, like, is there anything you think would have hit really differently if you had seen this without knowing anything about it in a dark movie theater, maybe even now, but definitely 60 years ago?
Well, it's interesting. I feel like I've learned a lot already just from talking with you because I
Yeah.
didn't know that they weren't allowed to show um A, the color blood, and then
Hmm.
B, like the actual cuts into a person. So I feel like if I were back then, I would be freaked out, and
Yeah.
especially not expecting that. Again, I grew up knowing about the shower and the blood, and I
Yep.
think they even have that in like Big Fat Liar,
Oh, it's in
like
everything.
they
It's
like
been
he's
used
showering.
so many
It's
times.
just like someone showering and you hear that music, so you
Yes.
know it. But I
Yes.
definitely back at that time, I would have been freaked out. That ending scene is crazy. Um, even if just seeing it now, probably wouldn't have known that that was Norman dressed up,
Right.
So I think I would have had a different reaction. I probably, seeing it nowadays, would have thought some of the, older dated things were funny or
Sure.
interesting. They count out, they show her counting out exactly $700.
Right. To buy the car.
Do you want to film them going to the bathroom too? Like, they just think they film really mundane things, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
But
Different attention to different details back in the time.
definitely. So, I think I would have had all those opinions still, but probably would have been more, wow, and oh, he's creeping on her. Like, he was so nice though. Like,
Right.
but I was like, oh, well, I know he cut that hole there.
Yes. Like, I already know this part happened.
Yeah.
Yes. And everything that led us to get here.
Everything, all the psychology behind it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, and
Awesome.
it's interesting. It doesn't end the same in Bates Motel either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it does not end the same. So, but
Oh, now I'm very curious.
I will not give that one away. I'm not going to do that.
How many seasons is it? You said it was a lot. Do
I
you remember?
feel like it's like between 6 or 8 seasons.
Whoa.
There's
I
a lot.
really missed a lot then. Like, I knew it was a thing, and I did not remember it was that many seasons.
Yeah, no, and again, I didn't even know that it was about Psycho, and then you mentioned in the beginning too that there's a remake of Psycho.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. When
It's
is that?
Vince Vaughn as Norman and Anne Heche as Marion Crane. And it's in color.
When is it from?
Maybe like 2012.
Oh, that was
10?
recent then.
Yeah, somewhere in there. I think again because I was so in love and am in love with the classic, it being in color first of all just took me out of it. It feels like any other horror movie.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make it very special. And I just don't think maybe because again, I think Vince Vaughn had probably been in so many comedies at that point. I had a really hard time seeing like the sweet side of him and then seeing him as dangerous. I just don't feel that way toward Vince Vaughn. I think it actually would have landed better if they picked a more unknown actor.
Yeah.
Where you really believed he was capable of that kind of like insanity and violence.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just none of it worked for me.
Well, and so you just made me think of something else too with Bates Motel. The actor, I'm trying to think of his last. It's Freddie something. He's so good at the role of Norman Bates
In the show?
in the show.
Oh, okay.
It almost made me like not even really like Norman Bates in the movie. Again,
Got
it's
it.
hard because I saw Bates Motel first,
Sure.
so I kind of am partial to that for that reason. But I'm like, Norman Bates in the show is just so much. I don't know. She just does
Yeah.
such a good job. But one thing that reminded me of too is he does remind me of my brother. So my brother is on the spectrum
Okay.
and he's very awkward and will,
Yeah.
like be kind to kind of sometimes have that switch and stuff. So
Interesting.
I forgot that like I'm like, that might also be part of why I have some empathy for Norman Bates. It's not
Yeah,
the
you
same
have a
extremity, but
different relationship to that presentation then,
yeah.
like, it just brings up that memory for
Yeah,
you.
it really does. And especially the actor in Bates Motel for some reason, like in certain scenes, I'm like, is that my brother?
Well, and again, I think that's such a great point because where we're at, time, space, casting does affect it. Like, some
It
things
does.
really land and some things just don't, and I think it is very common to say, like, they remind me of someone, which could be good or bad, or if the actor is so well known, you have a relationship with them, I think it's very hard to set part of that stuff aside.
Yeah.
Like, for years and years and years, probably a decade or more, I couldn't see Anthony Hopkins as anything but Hannibal Lecter. Didn't matter what he was in, I couldn't. Like,
Yeah.
he is Hannibal Lecter to me, and even if it wasn't, like, a scary movie, there was a block there because he just embodied that character so much. So I think that makes sense. If someone kind of brings up a personal thing too, it's harder to fall into the story, or it
Yeah.
can just kind of switch how you feel about the story.
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure. Yeah, it's like Daniel Radcliffe. He's Harry Potter. What are you guys talking about? Like he's trying to be in all these other movies.
Fair.
Why is Harry Potter in this movie?
Exactly. Okay, awesome. So as we're wrapping up, I always ask everybody 1 week from now, what image or moment from this film do you think will live rent free in your head?
I think probably that ending scene
Yeah.
with the skeleton and then him like
Yeah.
this and the guy holding him down.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like it was just I don't know, because I was taking into consideration how old the movie was.
Yep.
And I was like, this would be very scary for first time viewers, especially in the 60s. And it was a little funny too, like watching him hold him down and he's got
Sure.
this
When he's
knife
like
and
squirming and
squirming.
everything.
Yeah. And it does remind me of one of the scenes in Bates Motel towards the end. So
Oh,
it's just
interesting.
interesting
Yeah.
how some of the stuff overlaps, like even small things that I noticed, things about like the highway. Like this used to be the main highway, you know.
Oh, yeah.
They
Tough
talk
don't
about
get a
that
lot
in
of
the
people
show.
at the hotel anymore, or the
Yeah.
motel.
Yeah, like Norma's like petitioning to like not make the bypass happen and
That
stuff.
makes
So
sense.
yeah,
You're
it's
taking her customers
right,
and
exactly.
her prey.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just interesting. But yeah, I think that scene will always live rent.
That's awesome.
It's not the shower scene. It's not. It's just
Fair. For me, it's definitely the shower scene.
yeah.
Honestly, it's the very, very, very last shot of
Mhm.
Norman where you hear his mother talking to her, and it's sort of like you get a glimpse into his internal world.
Yeah.
And there's just something about the expression on his face. It's just so unsettling to me and unnerving. And I think because now I've been in the field for so long, and I don't know if this is true of every therapist, that I have two distinct moments in my career where I was in session with someone and they changed.
Oh.
And it's like every part of me personally had alarm bells going off that this is unsafe. And then clinically, it was almost like I'm interested.
Yeah.
So I want to figure out like the best way to not put myself in an unsafe situation and also do the work that we're here to do. There's just something about the expression on his face that rings very true of like, that's the major red flag is like,
Yeah.
it's like almost physiological. You respond to his expression of like, this man is incredibly dangerous. And I've had that in session at 2 points in my career, two different people where it was like something came over them and I knew like this person could really, really hurt me.
Yeah.
And thank God nothing happened. I was able to get out of both of those, a little emotionally scarred, but not physically hurt. But yeah, I think they nailed it. I don't know what the cue was or
Yeah.
like how
No, that
Hitchcock
was very
directed him, but it's like
I did
burned
notice
into
that.
my brain.
I would be interested to see you as Mary and like you'd be like, oh, I really should get out of here because I have all these alarms
Yes.
going off, but I really want to stay and like
Oh, I know.
dissect him.
This is one of my challenges as a therapist who's just so amazingly interested in people is I probably sadly would be the person in the movie who's
Right.
making dumb choices because I either think I can help
Right. Yeah.
or because the curiosity got the best of me.
Yes.
Like it superseded my internal warning system.
Yeah.
It's not great. Okay, awesome. So as we're wrapping up, you gave me a show to watch, which is new. But I've been asking everybody, is there a movie that you love, love, love that maybe I haven't seen that you want to give me as homework?
Mm,
I know you're a show girly, so you did give me a show. So that could be your answer.
I did. Yes, I gave you a show. It was really hard. Even in your form, you were asking about like movies.
Yeah.
You liked it. I'm like, movies. I don't know. I'm a big Survivor
Okay.
movie. Like survival thrillers.
Okay.
Do you like those?
I mean, I like almost everything. There's
This is
really
not
not a movie type that I don't watch.
okay. And this is not by far like my favorite movie or anything. It's just something that popped into my head,
Okay.
especially because I like survival movies. There's a movie on Netflix called Fall.
Oh, I just saw this.
Okay.
Yes, with Taron Egerton, right?
I'm not super familiar with actors, so
Trying to remember. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Is this the two girls that climb up the tower?
they
Just
climb up the
kidding.
radio
I have
tower.
seen this one too. I was
Okay.
thinking of a different one.
Yeah.
It was very good. I sweated through the whole thing.
It's
I didn't
really
love
good.
like how it all came together.
I didn't either. I was actually very upset at the
Yes,
ending.
at the
I was,
ending.
but it was I like that one.
The tension worked. I'm a sucker for like anything like that. My body responds for sure.
Yeah. I don't know what other. Cause I was about to say Yellow Jackets, but that's also a show.
Also a show. Yes.
Also a show. But I do recommend Yellow Jackets too.
That's okay. I mean, if you think about it, you can send it to me. My goal is that maybe the back half of the year or into early 2027 to do these episodes again and have you all come back and then interview me based on the movie recommendation.
I love it.
So if you think of a movie, you can let me know.
I
If
will.
you can't, I am down to watch the show. 8 years of content. You're going to have, I mean, it really won't happen probably till 2027. I
never
would be
know.
down to flip the script and we can come back and talk about the show Bates Motel and you can have all your questions ready for me.
Yes.
So,
well, yeah, I have shows that I could recommend, but I will think about the movie.
Okay.
Because I'm sure there's movies that I just can't think of them.
no worries.
I
I'm
watched
just
so
asking
many.
it for fun as we're winding down.
Yeah,
but-
definitely. But I'd love to ask
Okay.
you questions in the future.
Yes, for sure. So, all right. Well, that's it. We've done another episode. I think we had a fantastic conversation, got into some deeper stuff. So you never know where it's going to go. But hopefully, if you're following and listening, you're enjoying all my silly conversations. Please like, subscribe, comment. You can find me at Scene Interpretation Pod on Insta, sceneinterpretationpodcast.com. If you just want to look at the website, see all of our past shows available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and YouTube. If you're interested in following me, it's dr.sophiamurphy on IG. Did you want to give your handle?
Yeah, so my handle is Miel, which is honey in Spanish.
I love it.
It's just always a side note. So it's MIEL.pole dance.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us. Till the next movie. Bye.